My New Year's reading got started off with a bang. For the second book in my 2024 reading challenge, I had to pick a book from my to-be-read pile about an event that took place or a person who lives anywhere in the world outside North America or Europe. I decided to read Krakatoa, The Day the World Exploded, August 27th, 1883, by Simon Winchester. My mother-in-law gave me this book several years ago. She had read it and enjoyed it. The book was published in 2003. Today, I'll share my thoughts on this book. Hi there, I'm Linda Maxey, the author of the Library Lynn Guides to Great Nonfiction Books. As I said, I plucked the book from my ample nonfiction to-be-read piles as part of my challenge for 2024. It's about a volcano, Krakatoa, which was the most devastating volcanic eruption in modern history. Krakatoa didn't just spew lava into the air and destroy trees and towns all around, although it did that too. But no, when Krakatoa erupted, it wiped itself off the face of the map. By the time it was done, around 40,000 people had died from the tsunamis that it spawned alone. This book was written by acclaimed nonfiction author Simon Winchester, who was born in London near the end of World War II. He spent his young adulthood working for a Canadian mining company in the Congo after he was expelled from high school for unauthorized experiments he conducted in the school's new chemistry lab. He was an adventurous sort. After returning to the United Kingdom, he became a geology student at Oxford and spent time exploring places like the Greenland ice sheets during his vacations. He switched to a journalism career in 1967 and worked for The Guardian for a while and served as a commentator and contributor to the BBC. He has traveled the world, in fact. Just reading over the brief biography on his website, I believe Mr. Winchester would be able to write a fascinating autobiography if he should ever decide to do so. He now lives in New York State with his wife. He's written an impressive selection of books on a wide range of topics, from the San Francisco earthquake of 1906 to The Professor and the Madman, and another book about the making of the Oxford English Dictionary. He's truly impressive. But his background makes him very well suited to write this history about the eruption of Krakatoa. He weaves the history of the area with his own personal stories of traveling there and around the world exploring geological secrets. And he also talks about great discoveries like plate tectonics that were only accepted by scientists in the mid-1960s. He discusses the natural history of the Dutch East Indies, which is now Indonesia, and the colonial history of the area under its Dutch rulers. It was still a Dutch colony when the eruption occurred. Until the rumblings were first recognized in May of 1883, most had considered Krakatoa a calm island with a tall, around 6,000 feet high, extinct volcano. The rumblings in May did little to prepare the people who lived around it in the Sunda Strait in the Indian Ocean for what was to come. It was the first major eruption for sure, but it was also the first major global event of any kind to occur after the world had telegraph services to get the news quickly to other places. And the shock and horror of the event was the first time in history that people all over the world experienced a major event at the same time. In a sense, it was the first time we all came together as a global community. It was notable for that, if nothing else. But the eruption itself was a horror and a wonder to read about. The sun didn't shine in the surrounding area where the volcanic dust and debris blocked the sun for over 24 hours. The temperatures dropped by 15 degrees. The shock wave from the final eruption was picked up on seismic equipment on the other side of the world. In fact, the waves circled the planet 7 times in total. For months afterwards, the sun and the moon changed colors, and the northern hemisphere experienced unusual colors and magnificence in their sunsets as far away as New England in the United States. The tsunami waves from the event killed people as far away as Africa and were felt off the coast of France. The scale of the event can hardly be imagined. Winchester delves into all these details, which were fascinating, but he also talks about the natural forces, which weren't understood at the time, that led to the eruption. He discusses the volcano that has been steadily building in its wake, and Krakatoa, or the son of Krakatoa, which first permanently broke the surface of the ocean in 1927 and has been growing steadily ever since. It now stands at nearly 3,000 feet in height and last had a large eruption in 2018. Winchester explains why volcanoes are so ubiquitous in this area and why they always will be. After explaining the sobering events during the eruption, he explains why these events led to a religious rebellion of the area's indigenous peoples and how they used their mostly Islamic faith to rebel against the Dutch, who had ruled over them for centuries. The book is filled with great illustrations. I'll show you a few as I continue talking. He discusses how the island of Krakatoa became colonized first by plants, birds, reptiles, and finally mammals, and he shares the information biologists have gleaned from studying these events and the mistakes they made while doing so. Krakatoa did leave fragments of the former island intact, though completely covered in lava and ash. And for a while, there was an argument over whether the plants that first took hold there after the eruption came from the surrounding areas through wind, water, or birds, or if the seeds had actually survived the inferno that swept the island during the eruption. Have I convinced you that it's an interesting book? I hope so. While the book is over 2 decades old now, you can catch up on the region and the latest happenings in the Sunda Strait and with the son of Krakatoa online. My mother-in-law left a nice stack of newspaper articles on other volcanoes and geologic activity that she cut from daily newspapers around the world around the time she read this book. For me, that's a valued time capsule right there. Did you ever do that? Cut out and save interesting newspaper articles and magazine articles? Well, that's it for me for today. Leave a comment if you've read anything interesting by Simon Winchester, or if you have any other books on volcanoes that you would like to share. This book was featured in my book, Library Lynn's curated collection of superlative nonfiction. For more interesting books, check out my book. And for interesting books on people's lives, check out my second book, Library Lynn's Biographies, Autobiographies, and Memoirs. And until next time, happy reading.